Recently, Spencer Cornelia, a YouTuber who covers different scams, made a video about Umar Johnson. Several people followed up with reaction videos. One of the people who made a reaction video was Poetik Flakko. Poetik Flakko has a history in the Umar Johnson YouTube space. If you know, you know. I'm not going to cover that in this video. However, what I want to cover is Flakko's reaction to Spencer's video, specifically where he talks about the money Umar Johnson collected.
Umar Johnson purchased the building for a little over $400,000. Now, the building came with 2 campuses, and Umar Johnson's goal was to have an elementary school and a middle school. Now, let's be real here, bro. The building a little janky, right? The building looked super janky, had the walls graffitied up, had the windows boarded up, bro. All right, no plumbing, no light. HVAC system needed replacement, gym needed fixing, classroom needed fixing, everything needed fixing. So Umar Johnson began to ask for more donations to help fix up the school so he could launch. Now, around this time, though, people were already calling Dr. Umar Johnson a scammer. They were claiming he's been raising money for 5 years and there's been, no school opening up. He's a scammer. So when he began to ask for more money, folks began to make videos on YouTube saying, hold up now, bro, all right? If you're raising money, right, as a foundation, as a nonprofit, where's the filing? Where's the 501c? Like, where can we see how much you raised? That's public record for a nonprofit. And at that time, it wasn't available to the public. Umar Johnson hadn't really filed yet, right? So nobody knew how much money Umar Johnson had raised, how much he's spending, et cetera, et cetera. There was no account in public.
The issue wasn't just that he didn't file tax returns, but also that FDMG tax-exempt status was revoked for not filing. You see, when Umar Johnson started this whole school endeavor, he created an entity called Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey RBG Leadership Academy. He then applied for tax-exempt status for that entity. Tax-exempt status was granted. The entity then lost tax-exempt status in 2017 because taxes were not filed for 3 consecutive years. In 2019, during a radio interview, Umar Johnson explained why the tax-exempt status was revoked. His explanation was that he did not know the tax-exempt status was approved, and the IRS withdrew it before even telling him.
FDMG was a tax-exempt organization under the IRS. But there's only one problem. The IRS never served notice that we had been approved for tax exemption. So guess what I'm saying? They sabotaged us too. They couldn't refuse the tax exemption. So they simply said, we're not going to let him know that he got the tax exemption. We find out about the tax exemption after chasing down the IRS officer responsible for FDMG's tax exempt application. We was calling them, emailing them, both me and my accountant, professional accountant, working on this with me. And then we come to find out later that the IRS withdrew FDMG's tax exemption before they even told us we had a tax exemption.
As interesting as that sounds, that's a lie. Umar Johnson knew the tax-exempt status was approved because in 2015, during an interview with the Breakfast Club, he told them that FDMG was tax-exempt.
Now, when you look on the GoFundMe, we only raised 160, but most of my donations have been mail-in checks and money orders. People don't trust the internet.
GoFundMe.
So, but we raised $500,000 in a year.
That's great.
But the problem with that, if we only raising $500,000 a year and the school costs $2 million.
You got about 4 years.
Thank you. That school ain't gonna be
Somebody
around in
could
4
buy
years.
that, yeah.
So I need a check. I need a check. I need Jay-Z. I need that check. Puff, I know you listening, Puff.
Oh yeah,
all
he's
my
watching you on
rappers out
Revolt
there.
TV right now.
I need that check.
It's gonna be hard.
And we tax exempt, so they can write it off on their taxes.
He then created a new entity with a similar name. The new entity's name is Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Leadership Academy. And then he filed for tax-exempt status for that entity.
So Umar Johnson finally filed, for his nonprofit returns in 2020, and people seen exactly how much Umar Johnson had or how much he had raised.
The first time Umar Johnson filed tax returns for FDMG was in 2019. He filed a 990N, and he said he collected less than $50,000 for that tax year.
So in 2020, we can see here, if we scroll down, that Umar Johnson listed that he had 518,000 total assets. His net assets or fund balances was $518,000, which will mean that if the school is worth about $400,000, now it's unclear what the school was being evaluated as after Umar Johnson purchased it, but let's say the school was worth $400K, right? The amount he purchased it for. Well, if we subtract that from $518,000, that would mean that Umar Johnson had about $118,000 left in funding.
So Flakko is saying that Umar Johnson had a total of $518,000 based on the information that is listed on the 2020 tax returns. He then says that if the property that Umar Johnson purchased was approximately $400,000 and you subtract that from the $518,000, then Umar Johnson has a balance of $118,000. Well, that explanation is 100% incorrect, and here is why. This property was purchased in 2019. So if the property was going to be listed as an expense, it would be on the 2019 tax returns. Let's look at the 2020 tax return, which is what Flakko is looking at. We see for the prior year, which is 2019, Umar Johnson is saying he collected zero money. So he's saying for 2019, he didn't collect a single donation. Umar is also saying that for 2019, he had zero expenses. So if he was going to list the school purchase as an expense, it would be listed here. Umar is also saying for 2020, he had zero revenue. He also said he had zero expenses. At the end of 2020, Umar said he had $572,409 and he had $54,361 in total liabilities. And if we subtract the total 2020 assets from the 2020 liabilities, there is a balance of $518,048. If you look at the balance sheet for the 2020 returns, you see that Umar said he had $518,048 in cash at the beginning of the year. He also had $518,048 at the end of the year once you minus the expenses. What is also interesting is that Umar Johnson does not even list the property as an asset on the 2020 tax returns. So what Flakko is doing is factoring an element which is not even part of the tax return document. We also know that Umar Johnson collected more than $518,000, and that is based on his own words. During that infamous Roland Martin interview back in July of 2017, Umar Johnson said he collected $700,000.
So how much money was raised? What the people gave? All kinds of people gave. How much was raised, and what's the status of that?
$700,000, and the status is we're still looking for a school, and the status is my start date for FDMG will be 8/21/18, or if at all, it may be delayed to 8/21/19, which is the anniversary of the Nat Turner War.
Later on that same year, in October, during an interview on the Mike Nice show, Umar Johnson said he collected approximately $700,000.
Let's talk about your school. A couple years ago, you were raising money for your school. I believe that one of the goals, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was between $2 million and $4 million. So this is a three-part question. A is, what's the status of your school? B is, how much money did you raise? And C is, where's that money now?
Okay. And of course, I've answered this 50 times.
51 now.
Yes, sir. I don't mind answering it again, only because Connecticut don't get me a lot.
Right.
But I would say, though, and this is not to you, because I don't think you're familiar with the information as much. So I want to clarify that. But you do get tired of answering the same question over and over and over and over again. However, the original goal was to purchase the St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia.
Right.
Okay. That is no longer a goal because I was told that it was sold just under a year ago. I found out about it by accident. A friend of mine texted me, there's a black college for sale. They only want $2 million. I said, just $2 million for an entire campus? Let's jump on it. So it came out of the blue back in 2014. We started raising money for the St. Paul's College. I found out just under a year ago, a couple months ago, that it was sold. I'm now being told that it's no longer for sale, so whatever agreement was in place is no longer there. However, the school has been closed for about 2-3 years now. We have not raised the money that was necessary. We originally wanted $45 million, which would allow us to acquire the school and also pay for the rehabilitation. Okay, we dropped it to $2 million, which was the basic asking price to acquire the school, but that doesn't give you any extra capital to refurbish the school and get it up to code, because you're changing it from a college to a grade school. and the code is totally different. And because it is a historical school, you got to put elevators in there, fire, water, sprinklers. There's a lot we would have had to do. The $2 million wouldn't have gave us enough money for that. But we haven't raised $2 million.
And for my viewers out there, sorry to cut you off, and your school was going to be kind of like a border school?
Residential academy.
Yeah, for the young black.
Yes, sir. So now what we're doing with the money we've raised, which is approximately $700,000.
As of today?
As of today.
Okay.
Is we're going to get a regular day school.
Okay.
So first he said he raised $700,000. Then 3 months later, he said he raised approximately $700,000. There's also audio of Umar Johnson saying he collected a total of $850,000.
Not many people who can raise nearly $1 million. We have not passed $1 million yet. I know people keep saying, oh, he's collected $1 million. No, we haven't. We haven't. I will let you know when that happens. When we have received a total donations, total, brothers and sisters, from the first day of the fundraiser, when I took a donation in St. Louis, Missouri, in April to pay the attorney to offer a bid for St. Paul's College. I'm including all that. From that first donation from the St. Louis, Missouri community to the last donation that's in the P.O. box today, add that all up, okay? And we have not crossed $1 million. We have not crossed $1 million, okay? So we haven't raised $1 million in 6 years, which I'm still happy though. I'm still happy. I believe we're at about 850,000, which basically means we raised another 100,000 since we bought the school. So we raised about $100,000 since February of 2019 to February of 2020, March, April, May, June, July, August. So we raised another $100,000 in the last 18 months.
What I find interesting about the audio is that Umar Johnson said he raised money in 2019 and 2020. But if you look at the 2020 tax returns that Umar Johnson completed, he told the IRS that he collected no money in 2019 and no money in 2020.
Now, according to Umar Johnson, the HVAC system cost about $200K plus to fix, plumbing, electricity, and because he didn't have the funds to fix up the school, he needed more money. So he began to ask for more money, and folks began to get restless and annoyed by Umar because they felt like he's been raising money for a long time, and there wasn't enough money yet. And they felt like Umar Johnson was holding money away or spending money on himself or siphoning off the money. And they just felt like they were being scammed. It would be his filings in 2021 that did raise a lot of eyebrows because, a year later, he would say that he now has $748,000 in net assets under the FDMG school. Now, the price of the building, right, the valuation of the building didn't go up. It actually went down, right? Because the building was in decrepit shape. So that would mean that Umar Johnson, at the very least, if the building's evaluation stayed the same, now had about $348,000 in cash available to him.
Flakko is looking at the wrong column. He's looking at the previous year column, which would be the revenue and expense for 2020. This is interesting because revenue and expenses are now listed for 2020. However, if we go back to the 2020 tax documents we just looked at, Umar Johnson said he had no expenses and no revenue. This part had me scratching my head, and I just couldn't get past it. After looking at all the tax returns, coupled with some information I got from the IRS back in 2021, I believe these numbers are totally deceptive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the video here, and I'm going to do a follow-up video breaking down these numbers. And to Poetik Flakko, as you said in your video,
told half-truths and lies the entire video, man, right? I'm not even a Umar Johnson defender per se. I'm just somebody who defends the truth, bro, you feel me? And, if the truth is he's scamming or he's not scamming, you should have people make up their mind based on the facts and the evidence, not, you misconstruing things for your particular video is wrong and is not right. Regardless of who it is, it's not right.
So that's all I'm doing in this video is laying out the facts so the people can decide.